Hi, and thanks for joining, and welcome to Thru's latest webinar. Our topic, the real cost of ungoverned file transfers in the enterprise. I'm Lee Harrison, CEO of Thru, and your host and moderator. We have two presenters today. First up, Michael Osterman, President and founder of Osterman Research. Michael's research in the file transfer area is well known around the world. Today, Michael will present his views on everything from email as a file transfer tool to freemium offerings. And following Michael's, Sergey Arutiunov, Thru CEO, will do a deep dive on the Thru system architecture. And now, please join me as we listen and learn about the real cost of ungoverned file transfers in the enterprise from Michael Osterman. Michael?
Well, Lee, thank you very much for that nice introduction, and thank you for everyone who's here today. What we're going to be talking about is the real cost of ungoverned file transfer in the enterprise. We're talking about issues that affect virtually all of us because file transfer is such a common practice in virtually every organization. A little bit about Osterman Research so that you know where we're coming from. We're an independent market research and consulting firm that is very focused on the messaging, web, and collaboration industries. We focus extensively on research into how people communicate, how they collaborate, how they manage projects, and so forth. And so we look at issues obviously like file transfer, but also archiving, security, encryption, how content is managed, and so forth. We have a very strong emphasis on primary research, and we'll be going through a bit of that here today. We maintain our own survey panel of decision makers and influencers, really to understand the nuts and bolts of what's going on in the industry with respect to communication and collaboration. The company is almost 13 years old, and we're based near Seattle, Washington. So, fundamentally what we're talking about is file transfer as a real problem. It is a very serious issue for just about every organization out there because almost every user at one time or another will send files, and so creates risk for their employer, creates risk for themselves, and risk really for all of us as part of the entire process of managing information. So I won't go through all of these, but just some high-level examples of some of the bad things that can happen when you transfer files and you don't have good mechanisms in place to protect against these bad things. For example, you might be able to send a word processing document or a spreadsheet that contains highly sensitive information, things like social security numbers or protected health information or personal financial information, what have you. You might send it through email, you might send it through FTP, the hackers can get in. There's really all sorts of very bad things that can happen in the normal course of doing file transfers. And again, because all of us do file transfers at one point or another, all of us face some level of risk from this. It's certainly in some industries there's more risk if you're in the financial services industry, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, what have you. But all of us face a fairly serious level of risk because of regulatory issues and legal issues as well. So in terms of the current state of file transfer, this came from a survey that we did recently, and what we wanted to find out is, how many emails are being sent and received every day, and what proportion of those contain attachments. Well, as you can see here, 3/4 of emails that are sent in most organizations today don't contain any attachments. However, 25% of them do, which is a very sizable number. We found that 16% of all of the emails that are being sent through corporate email systems have an attachment that is smaller than a megabyte. However, we found that about 1 out of every 16 messages that get sent has an attachment of between 1 and 5 megabytes, and about 1 out of every 33 messages has a very large attachment, one that has an attachment of 5 megabytes or more. And really, email is the dominant file transport solution in use today in just about every enterprise. Small business, mid-sized, and large organization, email is the dominant way that people send files. And there are some really good reasons for that. First of all, email is ubiquitous. Everybody has an email account. Most of us have more than one. And so there's a very high level of assurance that somebody you want to send a file to is going to have an email account to which you can send it. In many cases, you can even guess at somebody's email address. There's no requirement for a pre-established relationship as there is with other types of tools. It's extremely easy to use. It's standards-based so that no matter who produces the email client or the email server, you're virtually guaranteed that you can send information from one person to another. And also, email is fairly reliable. Maybe not as reliable as we might like, but overall, it's a fairly reliable medium for sending files and sending other kinds of content. And what we found in our research is that we tend to think of email as this communications medium for sending messages back and forth. In reality, the vast majority, 98% of the bits that are going through corporate email are actually files, not the messages themselves. We found that emails with no attachments actually account for only 2% of the total message traffic in the typical organization, and that emails with attachments of at least a megabyte, if not larger, account for the vast majority. Upwards of 90% of all of the traffic is accounted for by files. So again, we think of email as a file transport system. In reality, it's a way to send files with communication as sort of an adjunct to that. Okay, we're going to watch just a very short video now that discusses some of the problems with using email for file transport.
As we're interacting with our customers, they have immediate need for interaction, for data that has to be transmitted back and forth, files that have to move back and forth. And that need is immediate. And then a lot of times what happens is when we send them traditionally through email, the files are too long or too large, and then what ends up happening is they get blocked. Somebody else's software says, we're not going to allow that .executable, and it ends up being a problem for us to actually move information back and forth with our customers.
Okay, very good. Now, in terms of using email for file transport, which is, again, a very common thing for all of us to do, there are a number of risks associated with that. Certainly significantly increased corporate risk from the kinds of problems we saw just a few minutes ago of people accidentally sending files that contain sensitive information, or maybe sending files to the wrong person using the type ahead feature in Outlook, for example. So on that level, just the ability to send very sensitive or confidential information to the wrong party or to send it unencrypted, it presents a fairly serious risk for most organizations. It's not just for heavily regulated ones, it's for virtually any organization. We have found in our research that people have sent server identities with passwords, they've sent protected health information, consumer credit cards, that kind of thing, all through email, and in many cases unencrypted. Also, files can exist in a fairly large number of locations that are completely outside the control of the sender. When you send an email, for example, it can exist on a backup tape, an archive, somebody's desktop, their laptop, their smartphone, tablet, intermediate servers, and so forth. And so when you send this content, you really lose control over most of the venues on which that data might be stored. That creates another very serious issue. Also, users don't control content. They don't control what happens to it after it's sent. So the recipient can copy it to anybody they want. They can forward it, they can print it, they can edit it, and then send it on. And also there's no expiration of the content. So if you're sending something like a press release or something that is time sensitive, or really any other kind of content, you can't determine when that content goes away and is no longer accessible to the recipient. The recipient then becomes completely in charge of it, not the one who originally sent it. And also, there's no audit trail when you're using email as a file transport system. There's no way to be able to get in and really understand what happened to that content, who accessed it, who might have printed it, forwarded it, what have you. So you lose virtually all control when you use email for file transport. Also, it creates a variety of other problems. We have been doing research for many years on the leading problems in managing email systems. And we provide email administrators, IT managers, and so forth with a laundry list of issues and we ask them to rate them on a scale of 1 to 5 in terms of the severity of the problem for their organization. And typically what we find is that of the top 10 problems in managing email systems, 5 are related to attachments or files being sent through email. Because there's email storage bloat, because there's too much content on email servers as a result of using it for file transport, email server performance really suffers. You can have situations where you're basically chewing up all of the bandwidth and sending files instead of providing speedy transport of messages, which is what really email was intended to do. So you end up with slower message delivery times, reduced bandwidth for other types of traffic on the network, excessively bloated storage. You have message stores that are far larger than they should be. you end up with longer backup times, much longer restore times, which then results in more email system downtime. Again, another very serious issue if people don't have access to email. And then there are a variety of problems surrounding that. So, for example, most organizations will impose mailbox size quotas on users to keep their storage to a manageable level. That means that people spend a lot of time managing their mailbox to stay under that level, or they'll use an alternative email system, maybe a personal webmail account of some kind, to send content. There's also file size limitations. Usually IT will impose a 10 or 20 megabyte maximum file size that can be sent through email. Well, if you've got a file larger than that, a video, some sort of a multimedia presentation, a graphic, let's say you're in the graphics design industry, if you have an engineering drawing and you have to send a very large file, your options for doing it through email are limited, and so people tend to use their own webmail account, or they'll use other tools that we'll discuss here in just a moment. That creates a number of fairly serious problems in and of themselves. So a lot of organizations will turn to traditional FTP. It's been a standby for many, many years. Most organizations have, some FTP system lying around that users can employ to send large files, or to send any files for that matter. The problem is that a lot of FTP solutions really are not all that secure. The servers often are not adequately protected from unauthorized access. Very often users will share login credentials. And also there's no real oversight in most organizations of FTP. So if you put a file on an FTP server that maybe contains sensitive information and you send it out, there's no guarantee that that file is going to expire or that it's going to be deleted after it has been sent. So again, you've got another potential for data breaches through the use of FTP. It also takes more IT overhead to maintain the hardware, because this is just another thing for an overburdened IT department to manage, and it usually doesn't have the priority that a lot of other things do. There's a lack of scalability for really high volume file transfer. Creates another issue for organizations. And again, there's no audit trail with conventional FTP solutions, so you've got additional problems that crop up that are in addition to the ones you have from people sending files through email. Okay, we're going to have another short video that discusses the problems with using FTP for file transport.
Historically, we've operated FTP servers in our own DMZ, but our data center is not configured to be highly available. So we have building power outages where on certain weekends of the year we're unavailable, and we're not able to deliver the content that oftentimes our customers need for an emergency fix or a modification or an implementation that's planned to go live over that weekend.
Okay, very good. Next, we'll discuss file sync and share solutions, things like Dropbox. And admittedly, if you're using Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive, what have you, these products work pretty well. They work as advertised. They are intended to send files, in many cases very large files, and they sync up with all of the other devices you have. You can share links and so forth. The problem, though, is that for most of these tools, they lack user visibility into the file transfer process. You save a file, it gets transported to the cloud, and you really don't have a lot of visibility into what's going on with that, where it's stored, how it's managed, and so forth. And likewise, you lack control over that file transfer and file management process. You don't have the audit trail. You don't have the control over who accesses the file. So if you share, for example, a Dropbox link, you don't have a lot of control over what happens with that in terms of expiration or limiting forwarding of the message or limiting printing, what have you. So you have more potential for data breaches. There's a lack of encryption with a lot of these tools, and fundamentally just, again, an increase in overall corporate risk. And again, these are not bad tools in and of themselves because they do what their vendors say they're going to do, but they don't have all of the features and capabilities that you'll need in a really robust enterprise-grade solution. Now, other solutions are also problematic. We find, for example, in engineering companies or graphic design companies, what have you, when they can't send a file through email, they very often revert to physical delivery. Burn a CD-ROM or a DVD, stick it into a FedEx package, and off it goes. If you require changes, if this is a very iterative process, for example, things can get really slow as one side makes changes, sends it off to the other, and things go back and forth very slowly through physical delivery. Also, physical delivery is a lot less secure. If you stick a DVD into a FedEx envelope and set it outside your door waiting to be picked up, again, you've got the potential for unauthorized access. And that, there are cases where packages get stolen. We've all encountered something like that. Also, physical delivery tends to be a lot more expensive than electronic. When you have to burn DVDs, it's not only the labor of doing so, but it's also the media itself, maybe shipping external hard drives or USB sticks. Again, physical delivery is a way that you can send very large files, but it's not a very good way, and it does create a number of problems. Okay, we have one final short video here talking about some of the problems with physical delivery for large files.
To handle this problem before we implemented Thru, it was basically a manual process. It was a lot of CDs and DVDs being burned, a lot of external storage devices, so guys would buy external hard drives and hang them off their computer. We've got tons of paper storage. We've got lots of, every one of our, what we call our district offices contains an area of storage that is basically devoted to these logs.
Okay, very good. So what should you do? I mean, when faced with problems of using email for file transport or FTP or file sync and share solutions, there are really a number of things you can do. And certainly there's no one-size-fits-all solution to every problem you're going to experience with file transfer. But certainly you need to look to improve security and control over the content that your users are sending. That is paramount. You absolutely need to maintain the security, and you have to give users control as well as IT control over how that content is sent. And fundamentally, you need to put IT back in control of the entire file transfer process by giving them good management tools. Today, as we see the consumerization of IT with bring your own device, bring your own applications, bring your own cloud, IT has really been relegated to sort of a firefighter role. Where they have to fix the problems that users have implemented or imposed because of the implementation of this consumerization of IT. That needs to change. You need to put IT back in control. But at the same time, you need to deploy enterprise-grade tools that are going to be just as easy to use as the consumer-focused ones that users have become accustomed to on their mobile phones, Dropbox, things like that. You can't impose a tool that's not going to integrate well with user work processes, that's going to be difficult to use, that's going to have a steep learning curve. These tools have to be easy to use so that users will employ them. There have been numerous cases where IT has implemented tools, and because they've been cumbersome or they just haven't fit right into the way people work, they just don't get used. And so it's going to be a waste of money if you don't have tools that are going to provide IT with good security and that are easy to use. You need to focus heavily on corporate governance, on the whole notion of information governance. There needs to be a way to manage the information that you're receiving, that you're sending, that you're storing for long periods, for example, in archiving systems, because that has important implications for regulatory compliance, e-discovery, the preservation of content according to corporate best practices and policies, and so forth. And also any managed file transfer platform is going to have to integrate with all of the other applications, systems, partner systems, and so forth that you have in use in your organization. These tools have to be able to integrate nicely so that you can incorporate existing processes into them or incorporate the solution into those existing processes. That is essential because virtually all of us have legacy systems and we don't want to reinvent the wheel for all of them just so we can implement a good MFT tool. And finally, consider flexible deployment options. Certainly, most of us are looking at the cloud, on-premise, hybrid, and so forth. And certainly for larger organizations, the hybrid approach is probably going to be best because there are going to be situations where you'll want some capabilities on premises, others in the cloud, and so forth. So in summary, email really is the primary file transport system that's used today in most organizations, and it really shouldn't be. It's not a very good way of sending files. It is easy to use, and it is reliable, but it creates a boatload of other risks and problems that you probably don't need in your organization. Using email for file transport creates a variety of problems for end users, but it also does for IT that gets charged with managing the file transfer process and managing the governance of the information in your organization. Conventional FTP systems really introduce their own set of problems. They don't solve anything, they just move the problems to another platform. Consumer-focused file sync and share solutions work pretty well. They do work as advertised, but they increase the overall level of corporate risk if they're not built properly, if they're not built with an enterprise focus in mind. And bottom line here is that all organizations should deploy some sort of an enterprise-grade managed file transfer solution to overcome the problems we've discussed. Okay, and that concludes my part of the presentation. Here's our contact information if you do have any questions. And Lee, I'm going to hand it back to you now.
Thanks, Michael. Great stuff. Next, our CTO, Sergey Arutiunov, will do that deep dive I promised you on the flexibility of the Thru platform's architecture. But first, I thought you might like to hear from some of our recent customers relate their experience with Thru.
Thru has the capacity to handle the extremely high volumes of data that we would be moving back and forth. They had the infrastructure in place and the response time and uptime that is also we would require of an enterprise level company requirements.
Security plays an important role for us. I think that's been a big plus for Thru was we can group our different users and restrict access based on those user groups, and that was a must for us. We couldn't just let everyone see everything, so we had to use that security structure to make the product do what it needed to do.
Thru themselves, and speaking with them, would field our requests for enhancements or changes or modifications of any kind. They were great about that and really delivered on a schedule all of the things that we would want for a cloud system like this to have. It was almost as if we could sit around having a beer, talking about what we would want our dream FTP platform to be, and Thru made that happen for us.
One of the unanticipated benefits of Thru has been our executive team couldn't be happier with some of our new processes. Via our integration with Salesforce, we're able to now recognize revenue and confirm that the products have actually been delivered, the software has been delivered to the customers. Makes things so much easier, no last minute running at the end of the quarter to FedEx or UPS in order to get disks shipped to the customer. We just drop it and the customer comes and picks it up and we get confirmation that it's been delivered. So the CFO's happy, the CEO's happy, and our customers are happy. It's a great experience.
When I had these potential vendors telling me it's going to take months to implement, and then I had Thru telling me it was going to take probably less than a month, I was a bit apprehensive. And so we went at it, and I chose to believe the best from Thru and came through with flying colors because we implemented in less than a month.
My name is Sergey Arutiunov, and I'll be talking today about the overview of Thru architecture and design principles. So design principles which lay in the foundation of Thru are the following. The architecture of Thru is designed to be seamlessly integrated with the enterprise infrastructure and enterprise workflows. That was the main goal of our design. Thru is designed as a global network. So as opposed to a single location installation, Thru is installed in multiple areas of the world, and we'll be discussing it later. Thru is designed as a scalable architecture with both horizontal and vertical scalability. And in the cloud and on-premise installation, Thru could be configured as highly available. That's what we do in our cloud installations, with availability both in the data center and between the primary and disaster recovery secondary data center. Thru employs an in-depth security model with multiple layers of protection. We'll discuss it later as well. And Thru could be deployed as a cloud, as we do for a majority of our customers, or on-premises in multiple configurations, and we will discuss that as well. Thru is designed as a platform, meaning that for all features, or for every feature in Thru, it provides an extensive platform API and we support both SOAP and REST APIs, and we'll discuss it in more details later. This is the general architecture of Thru Server, which is the foundation of Thru Cloud Service. As you see, this is a N-tier architecture, and we'll discuss tiers top to bottom, starting with the top layer. The top layer of Thru shows the out-of-the-box available connectors, so third-party applications or existing clients that connect to Thru endpoints. So you see on the top layer that Thru provides the Thru web portal, which is the web application that can be run both on desktops and mobile devices. Then we provide the Outlook connector that supports Outlooks from version 2003 and all the way to version 2013. We provide connectors for Lotus Notes, for SharePoint, Salesforce, and Thru developed and published mobile applications for both Apple iOS platforms and Google Android platforms available in the application stores. The FTP and SFTP clients can connect to Thru over the FTP and SFTP protocols. We develop a specific transport endpoint for these protocols. And third-party applications, which are here in the middle, can connect to Thru over the web services, SOAP or web services, depending on the developer's preferences. The corporate directory rectangle here indicates the integration with the Active Directory that Thru provides as an additional connector, so that the users, instead of being managed through service and through cloud service, users are managed in Active Directory through federated identity mechanism. Going to the next layer, you see that the purple color here are server endpoints. So server endpoints mean that there are different protocols and methods to connect to Thru. Via web, left to right, web application, which I mentioned before, web services. Please note that Thru Outlook, Notes, SharePoint, and Salesforce connectors, which are available out of the box, use the same SOAP web services which are published as an open API to potential developers, again, who develop their applications connecting to Thru platform. Third-party applications can also connect to REST web services, which are used by Thru mobile applications. And the important part here is FTPS, which is FTP over SSL, and SFTP, which is FTP over SSH, connectors to the scripted for the customers who already have the scripted environments, meaning that existing scripts that transfer the data from or to the customer locations. These environments do not have to be changed. They can just log into Thru Server as if Thru Server were FTP or SFTP server. And that means that two goals are achieved by the design. On the one hand, the existing customer environment is preserved. On the other hand, all business logic which is available inside Thru Server, meaning notifications, file document rotation, authentication, authorization, file exchange, CDN, all these features are available for FTP and SFTP clients connecting to Thru service or server, as well as for web client. The same functionality is available for all protocols connecting to Thru server. That's why we developed FTP and FTP as a layer on top of core server. So the core server is the layer that is developed on top of the relational database and the storage system, which actually stores file bits. The relational database stores the file metadata and the user metadata. File metadata includes multiple different things, from timestamps, permissions, names, descriptions, and any arbitrary metadata that could be stored as name and value pairs, and to the transaction data. So everything that happens inside Thru is recorded in Thru audit system as available and is available for the data mining using the built-in Thru audit tool available via the web, via the administration section of our portal. The file binaries or file bits actually are not stored in database, but stored outside on any kind of a storage. And this way, we don't have any limit, don't impose any limits on the size of files stored. Could be hundreds of gigabytes or more. And Thru is agnostic to any kind of a storage. Could be network attached storage, direct attached storage area network. It depends on the selected on-site or on-premise architecture, and we have our own architecture in Thru clouds in different locations. Part of core server is Thru File Exchange, where files are replicated between the different locations where Thru sites are provisioned using technology that we call Thru CDN, Thru Content Delivery Network. So this is the Thru Content Delivery Network is the fast replication technology which we developed in-house, and it is capable of pushing the files or transmitting the files of very large size over the WAN area networks, wide area networks that have high latencies. So we developed a network transfer acceleration that allows Thru to push the files from locations like China to United States at a very high speed. So files sized in dozens of gigabytes arrive in under dozens of minutes to the target location. And this special granularity is provided here so that the administrators of Thru sites, the customer administrators of Thru sites, can define which folders, files in which folders will be replicated to different geographical locations according to business needs, and which other folders have to stay local because of the compliance with governance regulations. So this is all up to the customer administrators, and that is how Thru combines the flexibility of the very granular administration with the speed of replication across the global networks. On the next slide, the lower level of Thru server is various Thru service processes that perform different actions. Left to right, the notification engine sends out email notifications on subscription or on different events like file uploads, downloads, deletes, renames, all kinds of events happening to the data, or on non-events like expiration of access links or emails. And it could be extended. That's why it's one of the extension integration services. It could be extended to connect to other external enterprise processes. The second from the left is rectangle here, shows the retention policies. So Thru supports various retention policies for files and documents, which should be followed according to governance or compliance rules in the enterprise. So if the documents are allowed to stay for 72 hours in the customer site, the customer administrator can set certain folders or users or groups to comply with that rule. And so the retention rules could be attached to various objects, as various hierarchies from site all the way down to folders and files, and from groups to users. And there is intelligent interaction of these rules based on the proximity to the data source. The purge component, the purge service, provides the delayed deletion. So when files are deleted by users or automated processes, they do not immediately disappear, but according to compliance governance rules are stored in the server for a limited amount of time. Thru is integrated with the antivirus, which scans files on arrival and also on regular scheduled scans. And we provide by default integration with antivirus as part of our cloud solution, cloud service. And also the on-premise installations could select any kind of antivirus, which is a standard antivirus for this organization, because Thru integration with antivirus is agnostic. We do not require any specific type of antivirus the way we designed it. So it's all up to the customer which antivirus is going to be used. As part of our Salesforce, Thru provides the CRM or ERP integration process that could be extended to connect to other CRMs than Salesforce. And Thru CTO and Square, I mentioned before, which is the Thru Content Delivery Network. And also additional extension services could be added to Thru service of the backend. Say file arriving to Thru should be pushed out for the data mining or to external FTP servers. That could be added to Thru backend as extension service. So that is the general view of the multi-tier architecture of Thru service. As I mentioned before, Thru is designed as a global network. And you can see on this slide that Thru could be deployed in various geographical locations. So the left location is the US, right location is Asia Pacific area. And these are cloud locations. And we call them nodes, Thru nodes located in clouds or sites. Other Thru nodes, which can contain multiple sites, could be deployed on premise. And through CDN replication between the nodes is not limited to cloud nodes. It could replicate between the sites or nodes in the same Thru cloud location, or between the various geographies, cloud locations, or between the on-premise location and cloud location. And we have customers doing all combinations of these replications. And the connection to Thru sites could be either from end users or from the other applications over the API. And all interaction between Thru nodes, all the applications are the same or do not have any difference whether the connections and operations are performed by real users, end users, or by the API connections. In addition, Thru provides the geolocation service. So if the end user or the API call connects to Thru infrastructure, using the IP address through geolocation service can determine what's the nearest location, where is the nearest Thru site, and redirect user or connect user to that site based on the geographic location of that specific IP address. Speaking about the on-premise deployment of Thru, so as I mentioned before, Thru could be deployed, and that's one of the principles of architecture, is independence of deployment. So Thru could be deployed either on-premise or as a cloud site. And on-premise, we can scale from a single server or single VM installation, which is shown on top here, to the web farm or server farm with the on-premise or VM farm on-premise, to the global cloud network in the multi-tenant environment, or to the private cloud in one of the Thru data centers in Thru cloud. So all range of installations, on-premise or in cloud, are available, and Thru sites can interact between themselves regardless of the way they are deployed. This makes Thru very different from other cloud services or products, which are usually either on-premise or available only in the cloud. On the scalability, so the Thru could scale with the user base growth in both horizontally and vertically. So the application servers could scale horizontally just by adding additional servers or virtual machines to the load balance cluster in the application layer. The databases, because The sites in Thru could be split between multiple, could be contained in multiple databases, not necessarily in a single database. So the database installation or cluster could grow vertically, or could be added additional database servers or VMs or clusters, and the additional sites could be located in these separate VMs or machines, not necessarily in a single machine or VM. The minimum redundant storage is RAID, and it could grow to any type of the storage, as I mentioned before, network attached storage or storage area network. And by adding more redundant storage or storage clusters, Thru can expand horizontally. The mail servers are used for sending notifications and on the workflow, and if the volume of notifications is too large, again, the additional mail servers could be added to the cluster to handle the traffic. Thru security model, one of the principles of our design is multi-layer defense in depth, which means that Thru is designed to provide multiple layers of protection, and top to bottom, from infrastructure security. So Thru is deployed. I'll just go sort of, if you think of it as a concentric circles, I'll go from the external circles to the internal database and storage. So Thru cloud infrastructure security includes deployment in certified data centers. All data centers where deployed have ISO and SAE certifications. The physical security, cameras, hand scanners. The network is protected by IPS and by the DDoS, distributed now service scrubbing. The network installations is tiered with the multiple tiers of protection from external to internal. And as I mentioned before, Thru installations in the cloud are all highly available inside one data center. There's no single point of failure, and Thru provides disaster recovery facilities between the data centers. So if the whole data center is taken out, then Thru will switch to reserve data center, which is geographically remote from the main data center. The data in transit is protected by SSL or TLS-based encryption for HTTP protocols as HTTPS, for FTP protocols as HTTP as FTPS, and or by SFTP protocol for those users who use the SFTP. Data at rest is encrypted by ES256-bit encryption, and if required, Thru application could be switched to FIPS 140-2 option, and the keys are managed in the Active Directory key store. In addition, we implemented specific mobile security, which provides, in addition to the user authentication control, provides the device access control. So administrators of the sites, customer admins, can designate certain devices to have access to Thru service, and the devices could be, if device is lost, they could remove that device and provision a new device or allow the new device to be connected to the service. The mobile data, which is cached on the devices, is all encrypted and is designed for the self-destruction, meaning if a certain number of incorrect attempts to log into the device is encountered, or if account is disabled or deleted, the data will be immediately destroyed on the device to prevent the decryption via the jailbreaking into the device. On the server side, on Thru server side, security is provided by multiple layers of authentication, including the strong credentials, strong passwords, and password expirations, and lookup of recent passwords, and the protection against the brute force password guessing. The authorization includes users and groups. So in Thru, what we call Thru virtual file system, in Thru folders, the admins of the site could decide which groups or users in Thru have access to which folders, and this way separate visibility of different projects between the project teams. I mentioned before that Thru has provides integration with Active Directory, which means that when users added to Active Directory security group, he's automatically added to Thru, and there's no need to manage a separate set of users in Thru, which is a convenient way to manage the users in the enterprise environment. And in addition, part of that solution is single sign-on capability, where user just has to hit the Thru URL and he'll be automatically redirected via exchange of tickets to the identity provider and then back to Thru service provider to log on automatically with a security token with a ticket. And the same is true for web services. So the such out-of-box connectors like through Outlook, through Lotus Notes or SharePoint, all employ this capability, the Active Directory integration and single sign-on. The security in the web services connections is based on security tokens encrypted by ES256, and the links which are sent out by emails, in case of email distribution, are protected by the passwords, and also the check against the original recipient list, which does not allow the forwarding. So if protected link is forwarded and the user tries to sign in via the email authentication loop, via his mailbox, he will be rejected because he was not original recipient of email that contains Thru link. Another security feature is a full audit. As I mentioned before, Thru file system, what we call Thru virtual file system, is built around the audit. Everything that happens inside Thru is recorded in Thru audit tables and could be reviewed and accessed by a data mining tool. And also certain operations of connecting to the system, downloading the data, uploading data may require or may be configured to require legal agreements, acceptance of legal agreements. Once user accepts the legal agreement, that fact, along with the agreement text, is stored in Thru audit forever. Even if later the legal agreement changed, the original copy, which existed at the point of that transaction, will be stored in Thru audit. If required, will be retrieved later for the legal proceedings. I mentioned the file retention system, which is also part of our security, because the documents may be allowed to stay in the system for a short period of time, 24 hours, 48 hours. And antivirus protection is part of our security, Thru security ecosystem. In addition, Thru provides for the cloud installations, Thru provides the proactive weekly security monitoring, both on the server level and on the application level, and that this is done by automated scanning. And biannually, the third-party penetration test company is hired to provide the manual penetration test, and results of these penetration tests are available to the customers. This is in short the security model, which is the foundation of Thru security. I mentioned before the Thru platform is Thru is designed as a platform, so the majority of features in Thru service and applications are available through API. Two types of API, SOAP and REST. SOAP is used mostly in integration with enterprise clients, like rich clients like Outlook and Lotus Notes, or integration with enterprise portals such as Salesforce and SharePoint. REST is used currently in mobile application development. And as far as third-party developers, there's a selection. Certain developers who work in more enterprise portals like Salesforce or others prefer SOAP, and the other prefer REST. It is pretty much the preference of the platform which for customers select, or their platform that defines the requirement to connect through API. One of the features is that, which is typical for Thru, is that we use HTTP-based protocols for uploading unless FTP and SFTP are used. And the way HTTP-based protocol is designed is that it allows to upload unlimited files of unlimited size, or file sets, or folders that contain files, along with the metadata for the files and data that allows to recover and resume. This is done by selecting portions of the files which are uploaded, because the basic HTTP-based upload is limited by 2 GB. So with Thru, there's no limit on the files which are uploaded over HTTP encrypted with SSL. As part of our API, Thru provides the what we call the file transfer user interface tools, which are interactive tools. So in addition to backend connected to Thru backend and uploading download files, if an end user of enterprise system is required to upload the file, URL-based tools could be called with the security tokens, and it provides the Java or HTML5 unlimited transfer between end user and Thru system, but it looks like this tool is coming out of enterprise systems. Thru is completely hidden behind the enterprise system. That extends the API to the interactive tools, and it saves up to 70% of integration effort, according to Thru customers. The documentation on the API and the user interface tools is available on Thru corporate website for download. This is open information. As far as security, all APIs require security tokens. The API keys and the security tokens are passed with each call, and the user interface tools have additional security tokens to block the link copying, and that contains both IP filtering and expiration tickets. That's all described in the documentation, and all transfer is encrypted with SSL or TLS. Thru APIs are versioned, both for SOAP and REST, which provides the backwards compatibility with all existing or installed versions of all Thru connectors, which means that when new version of site of backend or Thru Cloud is coming up, the users can provision it for test group of users to try the new features, and it is not necessary to migrate the whole enterprise to new versions of clients like Outlook Connector, Lotus Notes, or anything else, since different versions of clients will be connecting to the older, newer versions of API. And this creates a very flexible environment for deployment of native or rich clients. So no enterprise-wide updates are required. This concludes our discussion of Thru features. And please let us know if you have any questions. We'll be very happy to answer.
Thanks, Sergey. And that concludes the real cost of ungoverned file transfers in the enterprise. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.